Hey guys, Mrhappy here, and today I want to do a very technical video about the game, about Final Fantasy XIV A Realm Reborn, and I want to talk about damage overtime and healing overtime mechanics. Now for the sake of this video, I'm going to be referring to damage overtime effects as dots, and healing overtime effects as hots. And you're probably wondering why there even needs to be a video about this, why people should even be interested in this. And that is because it can determine your DPS, and unfortunately, there is not a very good way of doing that in A Realm Reborn. Now, that's very confusing, but you'll understand soon enough. Now, for MMO vets, there's something here for you, and for new players, there's something here for you too. So, both sit down if you don't know how they work, and I'll explain it to you just so we can get it out of the way, because it's been bothering me so much since I found out about it. So, here's how dots work in this game. First, actually, let's go over how dots work in most games, and how Final Fantasy XIV is different. In most games, a damage over time effect will, let's say it has 12 seconds. It deals this amount of damage over the course of 12 seconds, and it ticks 6 times total. So it ticks once every 2 seconds. Now let's say you have a stat such as skill speed or spell speed, and it applies to your dot. This is in other games, remember. So it goes, okay, so before spell speed, your dot ticked once every 2 seconds, but now that I'm applying the spell speed, your dot will tick once every 1.5 seconds. That's how the game. That's how other games operate, and it means that the total amount of time your dot is applied to the target is also reduced. So that's how it works in most other games. It's a good way to increase your DPS with you know, haste and skill speed and spell speed. It is a super effective way of increasing your DPS. Does not work like that at all in Final Fantasy XIV A Realm Reborn. The way it works in Final Fantasy XIV A Realm Reborn is that there is an internal cooldown timer within the realm itself, so every dot and every hot in the server tick at the exact same time. This is by far the most difficult thing that I'm ever going to have to explain in this game. And to show you what I mean, I unfortunately only have myself as an example. Since it's a video, I do only have myself and the enemies in front of me. I could use these guys, but they keep messing up my take, so I'm going to use these guys. So I'm going to apply Venomous Bite to this Brood Ziz. Venomous Bite does damage over time. It also does some initial damage, not too much. In fact, you know, I'll apply Wind Bite. It does less initial damage, so we can keep the target alive a little bit longer. So let's apply the Wind Bite. Wind Bite does the initial damage. Now see this red number right here? That number is the damage over time effect of Wind Bite. Now as you can see, it's ticking. It seems all normal. Nothing seems abnormal about this. The effect's is about to wear off. It just ticked for 64 and just wore off. It didn't tick one more time, even though the last tick before that happened at like 2.8 seconds ago. The effect just wore off before ticking again, and that is because of the internal cooldown timer. Now let's try again and see what kind of consistencies we get. I'll kill that one and I'll use this guy as an example. So Wind Bite seems right. We're just going to let it tick again. It's got 13 seconds left. This one actually looks like it's sitting pretty well on the internal global cooldown timer. So yeah, just ticking away. 59, 64. Watch this. 60 and fell off. Did you see how different the times were that the dots were ticking this time as opposed to the last time that I applied them? That is because when I applied them, it looked at the internal cooldown timer of the server and said, okay, tick now, 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 and now. It is simply because of my timing within the world that it ticked an extra time. It has nothing to do with my personal stats. It has nothing to do with anything I can control or anything I can even be aware of in the game. It's measured, but because we can't measure it as characters, it's all luck. It's luck whether or not when you apply it, it'll do an extra dot or it'll tick at a different time. It's completely luck because there's no way of knowing it right now. This is something that if you develop add-ons, please, when this game releases the add-on support kit, please make an add-on that tracks the internal dot cooldown timer. They're 3 seconds apart. We know that dots tick once every 3 seconds, but not based on when the player applied it, but based on this internal clock within the world that determines when dots are going to tick. So let's kill this guy and I can continue the video. Now you're probably wondering, well, that's just one dot. How is that a good example? So let's use these Heliostropers as an example. These guys have a lot more health. Keep in mind I'm going to actively be dodging Bad Breath, however, because it's messed up a number of takes. So Venomous Bite seems fine. Wind Bite. In fact, I'm going to keep DPSing him. But as you can see, the red number under him right here is just combined. And no matter what I do, that number is going to stay combined. Let's just reapply Venomous Bite and Wind Bite right now. I'm going to wait. I'm not even going to apply it at the same time. Let's wait. Bam. I waited like 1 extra second. Look. It's still sitting on the same. It's still there. There's still the same number no matter what I do. Because all dots and healing over time effects tick at the exact same moment. If you're a healer and you want to test this yourself, you can actually just go heal a tank. Put Regen and Medica 2 on them at 2 different times. And watch their HP, their healing over time effects tick at the exact same moment. I guarantee you it happens that way. Trust me. So this makes a lot of the other terminology that I wanted to use in the game a lot more difficult to describe. The next term I was going to describe is called clipping. Dot clipping is a big, bad no-no, don't do it in MMOs. And here's the reason. When clipping a dot is this. It's when you apply a dot to a target, and before the dot actually falls off, you reapply it preemptively. Now, why is this bad? This is bad for a few reasons. One, you didn't let the final tick of damage go off from the first dot that you applied, so it didn't do its maximum damage. Two, you could have done another ability that would have done more instantaneous damage at that moment. And three, you just wasted a global cooldown on it. So that's why dot ticking or dot clipping is bad in other MMOs. How it's bad in this MMO is random. I mean, you could clip your dot like 2.5 seconds before it actually wears off, and it might actually be beneficial just because of the internal timer. If the internal timer ticks with 2.8 seconds left in your dot, and then your dot wears off, and 0.2 seconds later, all dots in the world tick again, you just lost damage. And that's so hard to track because of all the in-game battle text. It just makes it so hard to only see your dot number. And even if you could, it's just a really hard number to track. It doesn't appear in your battle logs. It doesn't appear anywhere. The only way to see it is to look at the enemy and look for the little red number that describes it. However, in A Realm Reborn, dot clipping is still something you shouldn't do. You should always wait for your dot to fall all the way off. And this is mostly because of the way that buffs apply in the game. Now, just because all the dots tick at the exact same time doesn't mean that they don't take damage calculations into effect. It does take your individual character damage calculations into effect whenever you apply them. Now, to show you what I mean, why you should never dot clip, I'm going to explain to you what is known as the snapshot method of applying dots. What that means is that your dots take all of your buffs, let's say Hawk's Eye, Blood for Blood, Internal Release, any of these. It looks at your buffs and says, okay, you had plus 20% crit rate when you applied that dot. If you now try to apply the same dot and it doesn't have that effect, it won't work. So to show that example again, let's do something different. Let's use these death gazes over here. I think they'll die a little bit too quickly, but we'll see. So I'm going to use internal release. I'm going to wait a little bit just because, like I said, these targets are pretty weak, and I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to wait, let it tick down to about 5 seconds. As you can see, it's ticking right here. And Venomous Bite. Now, Venomous Bite's been applied, and it has that plus 20% crit rate that internal release was giving me. However, internal release is now wore off. So let's say I'm like, oh man, I need to reapply my dots right now. Let me hit Venomous Bite again. No effect. And that is because the game is smart enough to know that it should not overwrite the stronger dot with a weaker dot. So when you clip dots in this game, even though the regular effect itself might not matter, the effect on the enemy can still overwrite your next effect just based on buffs. And I can show it to you as many times as you'd like me to. I'll put Hawk's Eye on this time and do the same thing. I'll let Hawk's Eye again tick down a little bit just so I can make sure that it wears off in time for me to test it before the enemy dies. So la-di-da-di-da, waiting for, okay, let's pull this enemy Venomous Bite. Wow, Venomous Bite, plus 15% dex on that. Let's watch the damage tick, 55, alright. Hawk's Eye has now been worn off. Oh no, I need to reapply my dot. No effect. And that is because of it's just, stronger dots will never be overwritten by weaker dots. It's the simplest way to explain it. So, don't clip your dots in this game. For the time being, despite that you could watch that whole internal global cooldown, and you could try and figure out when is the best time if you are that attentive. It is still a general rule of thumb: do not clip your dots because of that effect. Because if you have bonus effects on that have maybe additional crit rate or additional damage, and then you try to reapply your dot, it won't work. You're going to waste a global cooldown and not reapplying your dot. You're going to lose instantaneous damage. You're basically going to lose all the same things that I described before. So don't do it. Do not clip your dots. Not until we have an add-on for this internal global cooldown that we can't see right now, so we can't really determine. So that's two major damage over time effects things taken care of. And those are really the biggest parts of damage over time effects. And remember, this all applies to healing over time effects as well. HOTS, they work the exact same way. If you're a white mage, go Medica 2 and regen a tank right now. Or anyone, it doesn't matter, they don't have to be a tank. And look at when those two healing effects actually trigger on the target. You'll notice it's the exact same moment. So now that you know how damage over time and healing over time works in Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn, it's going to drive you crazy whenever you're thinking about reapplying your dot and you want to just see that red little number. You want to check it. You want to make sure that what I'm saying right now is 100% consistent. Don't worry. It is. I've done the testing. Don't worry. What I'm saying is 100% effective, and until we can track it, clipping and terms like that are going to be very, very difficult to manage. So thank you guys for watching. Hopefully this doesn't bug you as much as it's been bugging me, because this whole damage over time thing has just been driving me nutty. But anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share for more Final Fantasy XIV content. Things like this, dungeon guides, simple stuff, mechanical stuff, advanced stuff, everything Final Fantasy XIV. Also, feel free to follow me on Twitter and Facebook. You can ask me questions about things like this there. Just be sure to look for some of my other videos before you ask. I might have a video about them, but not always, and sometimes it's really hard to find exactly what you want. So feel free to ask me questions on Twitter and Facebook. But anyway, guys, I just want to say thank you for watching. I really appreciate it, and until next time, take care. I'm just going to finish killing this Heliostroper. If I get bad breath right at the end of the video, I got bad breath right at the end of the video, guys. Seems like a good ending to me. Take care.